Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have a video here, an educational one hopefully, on Digital Securities Sandbox here in the UK. This is very much like a regulatory framework that is allowing businesses pretty much around the whole country to be able to utilize DLT but under regulation in a sense, and to be able to test themselves within the blockchain sphere. We've mentioned many times on this channel in the past about the goal towards November 2025 when the new RTGS system kicks in. Everything around this date has always been in the back of my mind, and I think we are seeing a lot of things in recent times that are really edging towards the finality of us being able to explore blockchain in a full utilized way across the globe. And we're in a very much transition stage at the moment where businesses are still educating themselves about blockchain, about AI, how they can integrate all these different technologies to improve everything and anything about their companies and about the way we do our work as well. In this video, we'll just go through a couple of things that have happened update-wise from the DSS. And how this is really important to the rest of what we're doing here in the crypto space. So, of course, before we do that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos that we have on the channel. There's loads of different topics that we always go through, and do check out the educational ones as well. We don't just focus purely on specific tokens and topics within that region as well. We do cover a lot of things around blockchain and cryptography in general. So yeah, please do check those out. Let's go into this topic, guys, straight away. So this is what it's all about. The UK's first Digital Securities Sandbox participants get preliminary approval. This was news literally as of a couple of days ago. I think personally this has gone a bit under the radar. Hopefully some of you out there have acknowledged this information already. For those that haven't, hopefully this video kind of brings it a bit more to life. So just really quickly, because this article doesn't really explain the DSS side of it too well. So as I mentioned kind of briefly in the intro, it's regulatory framework pretty much for like the testing environment, not necessarily just for developers, but just generally for businesses to see if they can operate within the blockchain sphere. Now, digital securities in itself, I think it's just important to mention. This is very much a financial instrument that is issued and relatively traded and stored using digital technology. In this case, DLT, distributed ledger technology, and it basically represents the ownership rights or claims in a real-world asset. So we talked about many of these in past videos, but it could literally open up to things like trade finance or finance in general. We're talking about things like debts, equities, all of these things that are outside of what we perceive as what digital securities were. I think a lot of us have been honed in recently on the XRP. Is this a security, particularly with the SEC in the US? But this opens up everything, guys. Everything. It could be asset-based or even asset-backed, things like stocks, bonds, real estate. How many videos I've done on real estate is I've lost count. The amount of times I've been going on about this for the last few years. Hopefully it's starting to resonate to people, and maybe people who are a bit skeptical as to like where this was actually going. If you do go back to some of those old videos that I've done, or even just in the sphere of YouTube, you will see a lot of people have been talking about this for a long time, and finally we're going to start getting the fruition, potentially the reward that we've been waiting for. Of course, we talked about tokenization in general. The abilities of blockchain are quite clear. Things like transparency, the validity of everything, the traceability, these all link together of how this is important. And if you think about it from the financial perspective, things like dividend checks, bond checks, the legitimacy of all of this can all now be digitalized and essentially harnessed by the blockchain in terms of its verification. The utilization of AI potentially from an algorithmic perspective, and trend setting, forecasting. We talked about that in the future, about how we can potentially manipulate or eradicate interest rates, inflation rates. This is no different really to also having things like real estate tokens or digital bonds in the sphere of blockchain and utilizing AI potentially as well. That this can be, boosting the economy, boosting the way we process things, the speed of which this happens. So there's loads of really cool things that can come out of this. But yes, back to that important aspect of DSS. it's the innovation encouragement that excites me the most. I think this is great that the government, and along with the FCA in particular, where we've mentioned with this topic here, allowing companies to operate in this sphere and test it under regulation opportunity. So this isn't like people just being given a free license to go and do what they want. It's under the remit of what the FCA is trying to perceive to want as a framework. And of course, remember the Financial Conduct Authority. I mean, it's very similar to like the SEC in the US, and there's many other abbreviations across the world. It does allow this to be done in a proper manner, and that's what we want really as an investor. But we also want this from a business perspective as well. It's important that we're all aligned, and the frameworks really do work for us, whether we are investors, whether we are end users of the product or service that is eventually digitalized from the company that we buy or sell from, is operating in this way. Interestingly here, Archax, we did a video with XTC a few days back. Montis, who is owned by Archax, is one of those in the preliminary approval stages. So there are a couple of stages here: Gate 1, Gate 2. I believe Gate 3 is in the mix as well. If you look back in previous articles, there's a bit more of a further demonstration on this. Gate 3 applications open in the near future. But this is relating to gilts or bonds, sterling corporate bonds as well. It just shows you the magnitude, the opportunity, the valuation of all these things being digitalized. The question then loops around as to, well, what's going to be powering it? What chain are these going to be on? And we've seen the digital wallet videos that we've done in the past, where the UK government opened this to companies as well, to essentially formulate a new wallet that pretty much every citizen in the UK will have, as moving forward with that CBDC opportunity that's coming. But this is the key thing for me, date-wise and time frame-wise, the RTGS synchronization. We've talked about this for a long time. Even I think still the video that I did a couple of years ago about November 2025 is still on the video channel introductory page. If you're a returned subscriber, it always plays there, but I will leave a link to it at the end of this. But look at this: banks that now apply now can potentially be live February 2025 for an unregulated entity, provided it makes Gate 2 will go live probably November 2025 or later. So it's this date here. It's all synchronized really with this new financial system being in play. So we've got that aspect of innovation encouragement. We can potentially remove risk, as I said, having that with broader markets, the ability for verification, the ability of AI potentially to forecast and trend things. We could remove a lot of risk out of the markets, out of a lot of the financial institutions that are out there. We have the clarity aspect in the sense of everything that the UK government's been working on over the last few years, especially the compliance with security laws. I think that's really important to mention. And also we've got things like just the competitiveness. I think I'm speaking on behalf of kind of the UK aspect here. They've always tried to be a leader in finance. I think in the last few years, they've kind of had to catch up a lot. Not necessarily with the US, but I think there's other countries around the world that have already launched CBDCs. They've already had the placement of the frameworks of blockchain. The European Union in general, which we used to be a part of, as many know, that's flying ahead with frameworks. We know the fact that iota, for example, another project that I both hold and do videos on, is very much heavily involved in the whole overarching perspective of the DLT technology there. So it's quite interesting really, when we look at that aspect of bonds and securities in general, assets in general, coming across with that programmability aspect of smart contracts, really being able to be compliant checked quicker, the ownership transfers being verified, the speed at which, and the fees. Let's bear in mind how cheap blockchain is compared to existing methods, how much faster it is. It really does open up the opportunity. So as I said, we're in this sandbox momentum here. I've talked about this in previous videos about the education piece. It's something that I picked up on the TFID or TFDI, event last year that I went to, which Andre Castleman kindly invited me to. And one of the key principles there was, we've got this technology ready. We now need to educate, but also integrate it in a testing module. And it's sometimes really hard when you're in the box momentum to see what's coming in the future, to see how this really can further develop and how quickly it can develop. And lo and behold, literally a year and 3-4 months since I went to that event, we're now in this process where the FCA, the government, all open arms to allow companies to take this to another level. So it's really quite interesting to see that aspect occur. And the timing. I think the timing is really important to mention here in terms of what we just said about November 2025. CBDCs in general, particularly wholesale CBDCs, and all the other aspects that we can tokenize, all coming together, all being regulated. This is really fascinating, guys. It's really great timing. I've always said 2025 year could be a big year. Whether that transpires into the market in terms of our valuations of our assets, I think it could. Certainly for some of the bigger ones that have been quite slow in inverted commas over the last couple of years or so. And I've always said that it's about utility, it's about adoption, and it's about the timing. A lot of these that I call XRP, HBAR, XLM, all of these kind of projects, they've stood still whilst memes have gone on tangents, NFTs, etc. Some of them can be long-term holds because we knew what was coming. We've been in a very fortunate position to understand what is happening in the world, how this will actually transpire over the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years before the next big thing. Who knows what the next thing could be? Probably telepathic craziness. Who knows what the guys are working on these days. But looping back to this, I think it's really important to mention that the UK has advanced this. It's been quite open with it. There's a couple of projects here, the Clear token, for example, of how that can help. And even with the cross-border payments, guys, by the way, we did a video yesterday about XRP's involvement with the Ripple stablecoin. Again, timing. Isn't it coincidental that all of this is coming together at the same time? All of them clearly mention these timescales between this February momentum and November momentum next year. It's it's certainly aligning, in my opinion, those stars in the sphere of crypto. And I think this is where, as I said, it gets really exciting when we look at the markets ahead. And I'm not suggesting, go and find the ISO coins again, go and do this, go and do that. No, we know most of these out there. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to crypto, of course, you must do your own research for sure. But I definitely feel that next year is going to be very critical for a lot of those legacy tokens, for a better word. The ones that have been around for a long time now have finally got a platform and an opportunity to awaken, in my opinion. I think it's definitely something that we want to keep an eye on, and we'll for sure do that on this video. But I think personally that the valuation of digital securities in general is quite big. So I always try to resemble our investment based on, what's the market share? What's the market opportunity? It's a bit difficult to kind of identify like an actual digital securities overall valuation. But if you were to break it down into what could be done, I mean, we've talked about fractional ownership before, things like diamonds as an example. The prime example with Hedera and the Diamond Standards company, I think it's a multi-trillion-dollar market, right? But only 1% of the existing supply of diamonds is used for investment and trading purposes. That is mental. But now, because anyone pretty much with the internet, anyone who has access to the ability to buy the fractionalization of diamonds, whether it's a small amount of, say, $100 or the whole thing, the whole carat of a diamond, doesn't really matter. It's opening everything up. And we can do this with houses. We can do this with pretty much any physical asset that we wanted to. And that's where it's important to understand the digital securities aspect, because all of these also incorporate things like who has the ownership, who has the contract of this, who has the deeds, who has the bonds of this diamond, whatever the scenario is. It always loops back to that point. What's the overarching value of digital securities? And quite frankly, as I said, it's quite difficult to to put that into some kind of number, but if you look at the individual sectors, they are phenomenal, absolutely huge. There's some, I think I looked at some stats the other day where it's talking about digital assets, between sort of 2024 and 2030, and they're looking at around about like I think it was something like $22 billion by 2032. I think that's very conservative, because I think if we look at any other technology in the world, how fast it grows when it's been launched, I can anticipate potentially that it'd be way higher than that. And I do anticipate maybe even by 2035 or something like this, we might get to a point where it's in the trillion mark. And why not? Because, as I said, if you think about it, like real estate is worth, even in America alone, I think it's worth a fair few $1 trillion in the market, right? We look at the energy sector, we look at finance in terms of bonds and things, we look at assets like watches, diamonds, all these things I just mentioned. Literally anything that has a residual value, even if it's an NFT aspect, in a ratio format, it definitely just opens up that door to allow this to happen. So you put all those together, I in my head, that's trillions upon trillions upon trillions. It's not going to happen overnight, of course, but I think we can see a very fast development over the next 5-10 years, in my opinion. I think this is something, we don't just sit there and go, we're going to be millionaires overnight with this. But I think if you're holding the right tokens and assets, you're definitely going to have a real good go at getting some significant gains, because now we are in that format of utility, of adoption, of businesses now being educated, now being able to work with sandbox frameworks like we've just seen with the FCA and what we've just been talking about in this video, that takes us to that next level. It's been what we've been waiting for, really, for those like me who are interested more in the technology side. Yes, of course, we want to try and make some money off it, but the technical aspects has always interested me, where we're going with this. I saw the plan for many years, but now to actually be alive and in the opportunity of it being in front of you to take it to this next level is quite interesting. Let's hope it's in the right hands, first and foremost. But there's always a good and a bad side to every technology. I think this is really important to mention. I know that the policymakers in the UK government, we've done many AMAs with a couple of them in the past, are always pushing for that notion that it's to try and protect the end user, the consumer, businesses in this instance. Let's see if they can keep to that word and those promises, because as I said, if it goes into the wrong hands, it could go the wrong way. And I don't want to see that. I don't think anyone wants to see that. We're already fairly dystopian in this world as it is. Don't think we want to go any further with that control methodology and this, that, and the other. But guys, any more questions about this, drop them in the comments below. I tried to recap this as best as possible. It's a lot to take in, and all I would suggest is doing your own research on DSS in general, and try and coordinate that with the assets that you hold or want to try and hold. How this is all important, how it's connected. I hopefully explained it relatively well in this video, but it's always one of those things that you can just keep adding your own knowledge. The key thing is getting it out there and allowing people to do their own research on it. So hopefully that's helped. Guys, I'm going to wrap that up there. We'll keep an eye on this development. We'll see if we can hunt down some more projects and companies that have been involved in this framework project. But I'm so looking forward to the next few months, particularly leading up to February, when we're getting to those very last months now, before that November 2025 frame. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next educational video. Take care. Bye-bye.